All right, so I was just wondering what the total cost was for the raid on Occupy Buffalo.
You know, I don't know. I didn't order the raid. I know that there was police there, probably overtime involved, being that time in the morning. SWAT team, I heard, was there, so there definitely be costs. You could get those costs from either the police department or I would say the Commissioner of Finance. Donna Estridge could do it from the budget office too.
And I know you obviously had nothing to do with that.
No, I
because you're the
didn't order that.
legislative body
Yeah,
of the
right,
city, so
right.
I mean, you don't make executive decisions. I
Right.
totally understand that. I was just wondering if you knew what the total U.S. debt was, all public and private.
Well, I know it's gone up $4 trillion recently. I don't know private debt, but debt's $7 trillion is our trade balance, or the debt, I should say, not the trade imbalance, but the debt is over $7 trillion.
Well, actually, the all debt, public and private, is at the $56 trillion.
Okay.
Do you know what the national debt is as it stands right now?
The last figure I saw for just the U.S.
For national debt, for our public debt.
No, I don't know that.
U.S. Well,
No.
it's $15.2 trillion.
Okay. I know it was up 7, so I don't know if it went to 7 or went up to the number you mentioned.
Well, it's $15.2 trillion.
It's gone up tremendously.
Do you know what the deficit is, the U.S. deficit, how much we lose a year?
No.
It's $1.5 trillion.
But it's gone up over 4 of the last 4 years.
I'm saying as it stands
Yeah,
today.
okay.
Do you know what the trade deficit to China is?
Yeah, those numbers I've checked out over the years. It's over $1 trillion. What number do you got?
$700 billion.
Billion? Okay, so it's near $1 trillion. Okay.
You can find these numbers at usdebtclock.org.
Yeah, yeah. No, I know. I read some magazines over the years, and I've always looked at the trade deficit as a concern because that's your gross domestic product, you know, and it's just it's a measure of your output. And it's very important to be producing. An overly reliant service industry sector for the economy is not very healthy because the service industry relies on people having money and having jobs. If nobody has money and jobs, they're not going to be relying on the service industry as much. Therefore, that industry hurts too. So it's not a very sustainable model just to have service. Service is there to service. It doesn't really. It's not a manufacturing base.
And those are national issues.
Yeah.
That doesn't really affect you as a local councilman.
it's just
but
a concern.
they're good
It's a
things.
concern
It's things that everyone should know.
Yeah.
Everyone should know that we are at $56 trillion, all public and private debt.
Way too much debt.
Do you know what the debt, the public debt for the city of Buffalo is?
Well, we have debt service that we pay every year. We just had $1 million on our 108 loan that we had to pay back HUD. That's a result of failed policies on investing in businesses that just weren't going to pay back. As far as the total city debt goes, we get in the budget in May. We've done a debt diet down to $20 million per year as far as what we sell. I would have to venture to say the city has about $380 million out in debt, roughly. That's the last number I looked at.
And it'll be paid back eventually over
Those
interest.
are bonds based on.
Yeah.
That's not debt though for reoccurring expenses. Those are debts.
Like loans, right?
Yeah, those are loans that are paid for buildings and capital assets of the city. So you actually have assets to match that expenditure.
So do you think with the city and a lot of debt, do you think it was financially intelligent to pay all those workers overtime to take down some tents?
Well, I would have liked to have seen the people in charge of the tents, you know, the Occupy Buffalo protesters, come up with something that would have given themselves an exit. And, you know, I was calling for them, and you know, right along, I was saying I don't want people sleeping in the square. I don't think there should have ever been tents. I don't think that was the way to go.
Well, it's illegal.
It's illegal, yeah.
It's illegal.
Yeah, I didn't find it.
It was an act of civil disobedience, is what it was.
And I wasn't supportive of that.
And I can understand your arguments for that. But my question is it financially responsible for the city with $380 million maybe floating around in debt to pay all those workers overtime while we have crime in the east side? I mean, I'm sure you've been to the east side, right?
Oh, yeah. I live there on the east side, actually.
Yeah, it's
No, we had a lot of
despicable.
break-ins, a lot of problems on the east side that, you know, I just heard of another lady getting her house broken into. You know, the mayor made a decision. I'm not going to second guess his decision. It was peaceful. You guys were peaceful, which I recommend and compliment, I should say, commend. So, I mean, you don't want to go there and then have not knowing what you're going to run into and then people getting hurt. So I think the best thing is to keep it peaceful and keep it so people don't get hurt. But I would have liked to seen Occupy maybe come up with something that would have been like, okay, we'll leave now. But I guess they turned something down.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it would have been smarter on the behalf of Occupy if they could come up with like, okay, we're leaving this day,
Right.
you know.
It
But
makes
that's
it
what's
easier.
hard about consensus. It's you know it's good sometimes,
any
bad
group.
sometimes. Exactly.
I understand.
And I'm not here to talk about like that exactly.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And my other question was, you were on record saying that Occupy had not paid for the grass, that we had not put any money aside, which was false because we had put aside $2,000 for the grass.
To the city so far?
The check was made out by the union workers for $2,000 to go to that.
But it has been turned into the city yet? Because that's what I was referencing to. The city hasn't received any money yet.
Okay, that's a good point.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you guys might have gotten money, but we haven't received
I'll
it.
have to check on that again.
Okay, make sure. Let me know. I mean, because I'll correct it when I'm talking to the media if I am talking to them. Look, I really wasn't seeking out the media stuff. They were coming to me not stop.
Of course. I mean,
And it got to be, you know. But I always spoke of the right to protest. I have no trouble with that. I just really wasn't. I was against it, and a lot of residents calling me on this.
Well, because you cared about the grass. You
Well, that too. But the fact that people shouldn't be sleeping in parks overnight, and that is a park. It's against the city ordinance, and it did look bad. Those tents were bad looking. Not that I didn't mind the dome and maybe the bigger tent, you know, to work out.
TP.
I don't mind
TP was
that.
very symbolic.
I didn't mind the TP. I mean, the TP didn't look any. We're an Indian nation here. You know, this nation was run by the Indians, so I have no trouble with that at all. But the tents look bad, and some of the activity, we found pot in some of the tents. That's not acceptable. You know, I mean, on city parkland, it's just not acceptable.
It's illegal.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be accepted
Right.
anywhere at this point in time.
Yeah, right, exactly.
However, marijuana should be legalized.
Sometimes you take the money out of drugs, and it can make the situation better, because people steal for money to buy drugs. So sometimes if you don't have a money situation involved with drugs, if it's legal, and you know, there's. Over the years, I've looked at that issue too.
I was just you guys meet on Mondays to actually talk about legislation, right? And then Tuesdays you go out
Today
to,
we're caucusing at 2.
at 2, and that's
to
when people
discuss
can
the
bring
council agenda.
Okay.
It's really not. It's a public meeting. I mean, if there's something on the agenda, you can't just come in and talk about polar bears in Alaska.
Of course. I mean, you can't interrupt the process. I mean,
Right.
that would be
No,
not
no,
efficient.
no. It's just a kind of point of view. But if there's something on the agenda you want to speak to, you can speak to at that meeting.
Can any citizen bring proposals to that?
Yeah, I mean, you could ask for something to be filed with the council. I mean, you know, if people want to stay and listen to what you got, that's fine too.
Because I had a couple proposals that I thought might be okay if the city passed for symbolic reasons. One of them being the city to support an amendment that Congress shall make no law that they don't have to follow themselves, and that they should also pass no law that the citizens don't have to follow along with Congress. Mainly because we're seeing the Congress people don't have to pay, their kids don't have to pay student loans back, which I think is ridiculous.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
Yeah.
Also, military members not getting all their pay, while Congress people still get all their pay. Starting
Yeah.
Congress people start at $174,000 a year. Speaker of the House gets $283,000 a year. They vote for their own pay raises, which I think is ridiculous. And I mean, is that amendment? Do you think we could support as Buffalo?
Well, those issues you just brought up, yeah. However, you have to look deeper into that a little bit because you don't want to make it too general. Whereas it's going to put the country's security on the line. I know members of Congress have to act certain ways. So if there's something in there that, you know, we can't talk on our cell phones when we drive, but maybe a member of Congress could at this point, just like police officers. I don't know, I'm just saying in general, I don't even know if it's true or not. But if there's something in there that a congressman has to do, I'm not talking about insider trading because I support Congressman Slaughter on her issue. The issues you just brought up are fine.
So you're thinking that the amendment would be too general. So
Don't want
say
to be too general. You want to be specific because you can't say anything that they pass for them would be, because I mean, what about their own security at time of war, succession? There's a couple things there that will come into play. I'm not trying to throw a roadblock in your way, but it is conceivable that
well, that's
a member of
argument.
Congress.
You need argument. You need debate before you.
Well, check it out. What's up? But there would be situations where a member of Congress has to do something. you never know, they could be a target. I mean, I'm sure Congressman Higgins has been threatened before. Congresswoman Slaughter has had to deal with issues. You know, I mean, I have at a certain level, but nothing to that degree.
But every private citizen gets threatened.
Yeah, but you can't have your members of Congress being sitting ducks. That I mean, from a foreign country, you know, say we got invaded, or like a 9/11 situation where they're targeting members of Congress with their mail. You know, their mail goes through a specific screen. I guess if you send a member of Congress a letter, it takes like 6 months to get there. That's what I heard years ago. They said, make sure you fax them. So like, I sent you a letter. She goes, it takes 6 months. I go, what? Well, I guess their mail has to go through this super ridiculous screening process so there's no anthrax in it. And that's how it is. Kind of crazy. Maybe they've shortened it since then. I'm still going to ask Higgins when I see him next time if that's still the case.
And then another proposal that I was thinking about drafting and bringing, see if you guys would support it. I mean, these are all national issues. These aren't what, although they do affect the locality, the municipality.
Trickles down.
I was thinking about drafting a proposal, two separate ones. One for the legalization of medical marijuana, and then the second one, the legalization of recreational. Medical? Not in New York State. No, not yet.
People can't do medical marijuana in New York State?
No, you cannot purchase medical marijuana in New York State.
Even with prescription, you're saying?
Well, it's just not legal yet.
No, it's not?
No.
I'm surprised about that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't know how it is if like you get like a prescription from California and you bring it to New York State. I mean, I don't know how those laws work, but I know that at this point in time, there's no medicinal marijuana facilities in New York State. And I was just wondering if the city might be able to want to support that. Like, there's many issues with the medical marijuana. I mean, it helps treat post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
The UCLA just did another study where they said that it prevents cancer.
Prevents?
Yes, it helps prevent cancer.
Smoking would help prevent cancer? How is that?
Well, the thing is, when you smoke something, it affects the cilia in your lungs. It doesn't affect the rate that cells reproduce, which is what cancer is. Cancer is when your cells reproduce in a fast way. You get the tumor. That's what the tumor is. It's just a bunch of cells multiplying too fast. And marijuana prevents that. Another
Whereas
thing.
tobacco doesn't?
Well, no, tobacco doesn't, because tobacco. I don't know the exact science behind why tobacco causes cancer. I know it has not. I mean, every smoke.
So it's not the smoke?
It's not the smoke. No,
Okay.
It's the actual tobacco and the
interesting.
nicotine. The smoke within itself just hurts the cilia in your lungs, is what it is, because you have little hairs on your lungs that
Don't
catch
smoke.
the oxygen and stuff. With medical marijuana too, is that you don't always have to smoke it. You can put it within treats. You can
Can it
bake
be
it
a
into
pill?
treats. Yeah, the Marinol. You can get the Marinol.
I saw that once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, any smoke affects your lungs, but then you could put it into treats like brownies. You can put it into cookies. You can put it into.
Yeah, I watched the shows. That 70s show.
Yeah. So, I mean, those ways would actually be completely healthy because you're not inhalating any smoke.
Yeah, that's true.
Because any smoke will affect your lungs, of course. So I was just wondering if proposals
I'd be willing
like.
to look at the medical side of it.
Mhm.
So,
For sure. I mean, the recreational is totally different. That's a totally
I'm going to
different
leave that up
subject.
to federal government and see what they do with state
Yeah.
government.
And I mean, even with the medical, that's still, well, it's actually a state, because even with the recreational, it's a state issue because nothing about drugs is in the Constitution.
Right.
I actually believe that the federal drug laws are actually unconstitutional. I think that's up to the states to determine drug laws, but that's my interpretation of the Constitution. So I mean, those proposals I could actually bring to that caucus, and if you guys had time to like listen to it or something, or.
Well, be at the end. You're better off having a sheet to hand out and just pass it out to the council members. Say a few words about it and say, call me if you have any concerns. And you can always meet with members of the council, talk like we're doing. I always have an open door. It's easier. And, go from there.
Okay.
Sounds good.
And what else was I going to ask?
You guys gonna take any new steps with Occupy at all?
We'll be at home. You're working on stuff. I'm doing this stuff. I make videos and promos for people to come out to public hearings and stuff like that.
That's
I'm more on the media side. Like, I try to inform people more.
Didn't we talk about camping?
We had talked about camping.
Yeah, 'cause I didn't want to use that word. But it came out a lot this week, the camping word, and I thought of you because I was saying, I want to hear him say camping, you know what I mean? Because I know I didn't want to say that. But it came out in the court case with the arrest because there's not allowed to camp, within. So that word came up. I was trying not to use it myself, so I don't want to call anybody campers. Here's what we spoke.
I mean, I totally understand it, though. There was a lot of people there not doing anything that was productive. I mean,
Right.
I understood that. I understood that aspect of it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just what happens. I mean, I personally am aggravated at everybody in this country. This country is not just the politicians' fault, it's the people's fault for not electing competent politicians.
True.
And not holding them responsible.
Well, your activity is important. I mean, you don't, anger is one thing, but you do want to, like you're doing, is try to focus on how to make it better and work towards that. I mean, don't forget, how old are you now?
20.
Oh, you're young. I was elected at 24 to the council, and I ran because I thought my neighborhood looked like crap and I wanted to fix it up. So it's important to do that. Over the years I have, and there's always something else to do. You know, if you don't like the politicians you have, run, be a better one. You know what I mean? Do what you need to do that. It's important to be involved. But don't ever let anger stop you from being able to do that. You know what I mean? You don't want to be unelectable. You want to be, and you don't want to just have to kiss everyone's ass just to be electable, but you don't want to be unelectable. Like, you know, if you were running against me and you were arrested 10 times, pothead and just, you know, doing drugs all the time, I'd be like, this kid's a druggie. You can't trust this. You're going to lose credibility.
You can't trust drug addicts, though?
No, I can't.
Well, not addicts, but what about drug abusers? You can't trust drug abusers?
No, it's used against you in a campaign. I'm just saying.
It is, yeah, for sure. There's a lot of things used against you in a campaign.
Oh, definitely. So, but I mean, you always want to present your best foot forward. That's what I'm saying. And if you want to, you got to be in a position to be able to change things. So that's important. That's all I'm saying.
What are your thoughts about the NFTA? I don't think they're going to do any cuts. I think they're going to do price hikes, I think is what they're going to do.
Well, look, if they...
It's Monday.
Yeah, well, you know what it is? I just sit down and have a casual conversation. I yawn sometimes. It's unusual. But if they don't raise the rate and they cut the route, the price doesn't matter because the route's not there. So if you need to get somewhere and it's either $1.50 or $2, I'd rather be able to get there for the $2 than not be able to get there for the $1.50. So I said that to the NFTA. I said, look, not that I want you to start raising prices, but for the person at home, it's going to be a lot cheaper than a $20 cab ride. So, I mean, but provide that $2 service at the lowest possible cost. Why is Kim Mickle making $175,000 a year? I mean, that's a lot of money.
That's a very good point, and that's a point that I think everybody was bringing up at the hearings, too.
It's important. Now, they're $1 million short. Well, that's about...
Wasn't it $7 million?
Well, 1 year they were $1 million short. We gave them $1 million.
Oh, okay. So the city gives them money.
In the past, we did. We gave them $1 million one time.
Do you think that's right?
No, I don't think the city should be subsidizing their operation because it'd be too easy to just get the taxpayers.
And because they're controlled by Albany, too. You
right.
pretty much gave Albany $1 million.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's your fault. I'm just saying.
Well, I didn't vote for it. It was about 20 years ago.
Oh, okay.
But the city did. But that would be 10% of their deficit right there for one person if it was $1 million. Now it's, a lot less than 10%, but 3.7. But, I mean, what's wrong with a $60,000 a year salary for that job, or $70,000 or $80,000, whatever it would be? Why is it going to be $175,000? Up until a few years back, about 15 years ago, the president made $200,000 a year.
Was it 200? I thought it was 400.
No, it was raised. It was double to 400.
Oh.
The president used to make 200. I think it was right around George Bush Sr., Bill Clinton.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I remember we were going in the government class and learning it was 400,000, so that would definitely be after George Bush Sr.
Yeah. So, there you go. So I mean, I'd have to go through those salaries and see who's making what, and say, look, all right, I don't mind you charging $2 if you cut more. They say they cut $7 million out of somewhere. I don't know what they did. I haven't looked at their books, but it definitely wasn't out of that salary, and it just seems to be too much money for one person to be making. I mean, $175,000 a year. That's 2 years' salary. It should be for her instead of one, and maybe that'd be a nice salary.
That would be a nice salary. That's still upper middle class.
Oh yeah, it's a nice salary. You live in Buffalo. It's very affordable to live here. I don't see the problem. I don't see where you really need to be that much of a rocket scientist to be the NFTA executive director. I mean, you have to be very smart. You have to be intelligent. But it's not something I think that you need to make $175,000 for. It's just my opinion.
I would agree.
Nothing
with that.
against her personally. It would be anybody in the job.
Yeah, of course.
If they had Rudy Giuliani in the job, I'd say the same thing. No, I'm sorry. You're not getting $175,000.
I agree with that.
So,
do you think that they should sell the waterfront? Do you think that would be a reasonable idea?
If they want to. So
you think they do want to?
Yeah, I talked to them. But it's only one shot. You sell it, it's gone. 1 year. What does it do for your debt? So they really need to make some structural changes. That money should be held maybe in a reserve account so that rates don't have to go up. But there's a lot of contamination in some of that land that they have.
That's what I was hearing too.
Yeah, supposedly the city
from the
has some
Bethlehem,
version.
right?
I would have to say so, yeah.
Mm.
I forgot if you said north or south. But,
Someone was estimating the cost to clean up that contamination like millions of dollars.
oh, of course.
It would be millions of dollars,
If it was anything less than 10, I'd be surprised.
and that's only parts of the waterfront, right?
Right.
How much of the waterfront do you think is actually usable?
Depends on the purpose. They said that they had to put a clay cap on that portion, and people couldn't dig it all, so that's a large portion. That's at least 30% right
Okay.
there. Depends on what you could do. You know, maybe just throw a frisbee around it. You can't really dig. Not good for football or nothing like that. That's probably football and waterfront. I don't know. I think that the NFTA has been very slow. The little boat harbor is nice, but I think it could be a lot better. Sorry.
But I was always under the assumption that they should just sell the waterfront property, and
Well, they shouldn't be in charge of it. I mean,
they're not doing anything
they're not
with
doing
it.
anything. They haven't done anything, and they're not going to start. And I just think that they should just, be done with it.
And I talked to Jim from Delaware Printing. He said that he had seen an article in the newspaper from 1912 saying that the city of Buffalo was still planning on developing the waterfront. So that's over
1912?
100 years. Yes.
It's unbelievable.
It's very unbelievable.
Well, they're making strides. I mean, Higgins has been doing a great job on the waterfront. There's been a lot of strides. Griffin did his share. But it's been slow, so you just got to keep things moving.
Do you think maybe a good idea for the waterfront? Maybe make some farmland right there, maybe perhaps? No?
No, it's key land. You don't need to be in the waterfront for that. You really need a waterfront use. You need something to pop, something to really be an anchor for your city on the waterfront. But farmland never by the waterfront. I wouldn't even think of that because you have so much interior space. I mean, don't forget you could take sections of the city, make farmland if you wanted. I mean, that could work if you wanted to create a little agricultural district off of Broadway somewhere. You could do that. You get so much space. I would never use my prime real estate for farmland.
What do you think we should do with the waterfront?
Well, public access is important, but I also think, create some business opportunities. A little network of retail and attraction. I mean, the waterfront's an attraction. That's really what it is, and has to speak for your city. That's where visitors will go. They like being by the water. It has to be sustainable. That's what I'd like to see there.
Do you think maybe a poll out of all the citizens of Buffalo should ask what we should do with the waterfront and maybe see what they think? Or?
Yeah, not against the residents having a voice. I mean, but they've come to charrettes. Don't forget, there's been a number of charrettes. There's been some idea sessions the mayor held. I thought that was a good idea. And I think that information's to be readily available. I think it's there. So, yeah, I think the mayor did a good job with that meeting. He had a couple of meetings where he's like, wait, what do you want to see on the waterfront? Come down. And I think that was helpful.
Do you think that we should have more bike pathways in the city of
I
Buffalo?
do. I'm a biker myself, bicyclist. And interconnectivity is important. There's supposedly something in the works between TIFF Nature Preserve, South Buffalo, right through to the Tonawanda.
Yeah, especially gas prices going to be $5 a gallon this summer.
I've always said that. I mean, to be honest, I have about 10 bikes in my house, and my wife's always like, "Get rid of it." I said, "No." I said, "You never know." I'm like, "Hey, what about 10 years from now? If we're not driving around cars, what do we do then?" And I got some older-fashioned bikes with fenders, in case it's raining, get your back all wet. And she's like, "Throw this." I said, "No." I said, "I could ride that bike to City Hall in 10 minutes. I could ride that bike 30 miles tomorrow if I wanted to. I'd stay in shape. And if it's raining, I can do the same thing. I don't feel all wet, visibly. So I'm like, that's a good piece of transportation. I says, you're not really seeing it for what it is. It's a good piece of transport. If we were in China, that would be my car. You know what I mean? So I think it's important that people realize what they got. So I don't have to spend $500 10 years from now on a bike that's going to do the same thing this thing's going to do 10 years from now for me. It's just, I've had it for 20 years, leave it alone.
I agree.
So I just get it out of her mind and throw it up in the rafter somewhere so she'll see it. But it's important.
What do you think about the Federal Reserve?
I don't follow the Federal Reserve too much.
No. Do you know when it was created or anything like that?
Well, I mean, I got the historical knowledge, but interest rates have been low. Reserve Chairman Bernanke's been keeping them low, and it doesn't help for people's earnings.
Do you know what the rates are at now?
Well, isn't it 0?
0.025%.
Yeah,
it's pretty
real
low.
I mean, it's super low. Lowest it's ever been for this long that I can remember, probably since the Depression era. And it's hurt a lot of people because It helps in a way because people can borrow money, but it hurts because no one's making any interest. Tax guy asked me what my interest earnings were, and he was like, "That's low." I'm like, "I know, you make no money on interest anymore."
Well, the Federal Reserve was created in 1913.
Yeah, I was thinking 1912 area. But...
Yeah, it was 1913. It was also around the same time that they made the federal income tax. Also, do you know how the Federal Reserve works? Like, do you know how like money's printed and stuff like that?
I do. Different knowledge over the years with the mint and things. So I followed that in high school. We did some different projects on that. I was always a business major, so that's what I was working on back then.
And the Federal Reserve is a private bank, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that
federally insured though?
Federally insured, yeah. Just like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac,
Right.
just like them. Almost exactly.
Why were they spending so many dollars on consultants? Isn't that ridiculous?
They're a private industry.
It's unbelievable.
They're a private industry.
Yeah.
That's the only answer I have.
Yeah, I know.
But the Federal Reserve, what they do is they trade the Federal Reserve notes for the Treasury bonds with interest. So the interest from those bonds goes to the Federal Reserve. Do you think that's right?
I don't know. I don't really have an opinion on it. I didn't follow it that close to where his money goes.
It's a national issue. I mean, it's not really
Yeah.
something you have to focus on that much. You have to work on that.
That journal.
All right.